everyone, and good afternoon. Thank you all for joining me today for my very first podcast. I'm beyond excited to launch this podcast. It has been something that have been in the works for me for quite some time, and is well overdue. This is definitely something that is near and dear to my heart, of course. And it's something that is well needed. I am definitely being extremely transparent with things that I am going to be sharing with you guys within this podcast. And I want you all to not be afraid to send me emails, to comment during each show, and just support. And of course, always like and share this podcast with your family, friends, anyone that you think would benefit from the information that I will be sharing throughout this podcast. So, again, I would like to thank you for joining me in the Mental Cookie podcast. Yes, let's celebrate the fact that I am doing it because I've been putting this off for way, way, way too long. So, let's go ahead and get into today's topic. What I'm going to be talking about today is triggers, mental health triggers, those things that are, let's say, things that causes us to have different bouts of depression, extreme stress, um, even manic episodes. And I will be sharing a lot of those different terms with you guys in case you are unfamiliar with what they are and what they mean. No worries. I am here to share and help and educate you with those things. So, again, our first question is going to be, what are triggers? I've been sharing these graphics with you guys, coming up to this for quite some time. So I'm going to tell you guys what triggers are. So, in mental health terms, a trigger refers to something that affects your emotional state, often significantly, by causing extreme overwhelm. A trigger affects your ability to remain present in the moment. It may bring up specific thoughts, patterns, or influence your behavior. For example, you can watch something, you can hear something, you can see something that it will cause a specific type of trigger in your life, or a specific emotion in your life. For example, for me, I've been living with bipolar disorder for over 25 years. And over the past, I would say, 7 years, 6, 7 years, I have been able to identify what my triggers are. As specifically, I have seasonal triggers, meaning, the fall enacts a certain type of response for me, the spring, the summer, the winter. Um, During the times of those seasons, especially within the fall, for me, what I have noticed is The fall often brings about extreme bouts of depression as well as mania. And mania is something where I am experiencing a lot of days of anxiety, where my heart is racing like nonstop. I have an abundance of nervous energy. I can't sleep. There are times where I am literally up for 2 and 3 days at a time, and there's nothing that I can seem to do to calm myself down so that I can sleep and rest. And when you have a lack of sleep, when you're not resting properly, that tends to bring on a host of other things. I have a headache. I am extremely exhausted, of course, because I haven't slept in days. So, that is definitely something that is not healthy, because when you're not sleeping, when you are not getting the proper rest, it just causes all kinds of headaches. Sometimes I will develop a fever. I am, like I said, especially the main thing is I have an extreme headache that I cannot get rid of because I have been up for 2 or 3 days. So, what I have started doing is when I feel those bouts of mania about to happen, I would say September, the end of August, September is when at the beginning of September is really when it, comes into full effect and I really start to see them a lot. It's really difficult for me. So what I try to do is I will walk more because living here in Arizona, it's hot. I mean, like hot, hot, hot. And so it tends to cool down and it allows me to get out in nature and walk. Walking definitely helps me, it calms me. I'm walking, listening to my music. Um, it doesn't really matter what genre of music I listen to. I have lots and lots of different genres of music in my iTunes library. Um, I also listen to a lot of audiobooks during this time, and it calms me down and it helps me to focus my thoughts on something else. Another thing that I have really um, loved to do and started doing, well, I'm not going to say started because I've always done this, is journaling. Specifically, journaling before bed. Setting a time where I'm actually in the bed and not having the TV on and not having my face in my iPhone or my iPad. So, those are some things that I have introduced into my routines to help kind of subside those bouts of mania that I have during the fall. Um, Another thing that I have noticed is spring. Not so much as spring. Well, spring, I love spring because I was born in the spring. So spring is kind of a calming period for me. So every year I look forward to spring. Winter for me, it triggers a lot of depression. And it also triggers a lot of um, times where I make really, really, really bad decisions that have lasting effects in my life. So, being able to really delve into and taking a look inside of yourself and being transparent and honest with yourself with regards to what triggers certain types of emotions and mental status for you is important in helping you to overcome and manage those times in your life. Now, everyone is not going to experience the same types of triggers. They're not going to experience the same types of emotional states because of these triggers. I am just sharing with you guys what I personally experience and how I navigate through them. And that's really what this podcast is going to be about. I am not a licensed professional. I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychotherapist. Um, so I will definitely encourage each and every one of you to seek out professional help if you are at a point where you are unable to manage these things within your life. There's absolutely nothing wrong, there is no shame in you doing so. And so I want to encourage all of you to do just that. If you are at a point in your life where you are experiencing more sad days, more days of depression, hopelessness, you know, even suicidal thoughts, by all means, do not hesitate and reach out to a professional for assistance in managing your mental health because it is very, 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 very important in doing so. So, our next question is going to be, we're just going to move right along, is how do I identify what mental triggers are? So, how do you become aware of things that alter your mood? Just like I just shared with you guys, for me, I realized that the different seasons have an effect on my moods. Not only seasons, but actually people, people as well. Um, my ex, he really was a huge trigger for me, and it took me a long time to realize that he indeed was a trigger for me, and the type of emotion that he triggered within me. And I had to overcome that myself for my own um, health and well being. I had to end that relationship as well as end those triggers within that. So for me, that was something that it took me a very, very, very long time to identify and get over. I'm sorry, guys. Please forgive me if you are hearing some noise, but my microphone stand just doesn't want to cooperate with me right now. I apologize for that. But anyway, for me, I had to fix that. It was nothing that he had to do or he needed to work on because it had nothing, although it had everything to do with him, it had at the same time nothing to do with him. It was all on me. So it was something that I needed to work on and fix myself, which is what I did. I identified that and I fixed it. I went beyond that. Um, Another person that used to be a huge trigger for me was my mom. Me and my mom's relationship hasn't always been the best, but we got to a point where, we talked without anger and, a lot of emotions. It got to a point where I had to get to a level of understanding with my mom to be able to work through the issues that we had. And she no longer is a trigger for me. That trigger for me with her would also be a state of depression and sadness and anger and hurt. So those were things that I had to work on and get over. So if you guys notice, what I'm saying here a lot is, although other other entities influence my triggers, they are not the sole blame of my triggers. It's all still resides within me. They're all still things that I have to work on and overcome and manage within myself. So, again, another way for you guys to manage and identify these things and to start your journey in overcoming, managing, and healing is you need to be aware. Being aware of what triggers you and having a journal to be able to write things down is so important. I'm I'm kind of older, so we didn't used to call it a journal. It was a diary. So I have like several of them, and at one point I would go back and I would read those diaries, and I would see the same thing over and over and over again that I was writing in my diaries. I would see the exact same things over and over and over again. And I noticed a pattern. I noticed that there was a pattern of things that was going on in my journal. And once I noticed the same repetitive things that I was writing, I mean, no matter what day, what month, what year, I mean, I have diaries and journals like dating back to before I had kids. And my oldest is 29 years old. And I would compare those things in those journals to things of present day, and it was literally a mirror image. The exact same wording, the exact same things over and over and over again I was writing. So I had to stop and I had to evaluate myself and figure out what is it about you that is causing you to have the exact same emotional responses year after year, decade after decade, month after month, day after day. What is it within you that is broken that you need to repair and you need to fix so that you can heal and change and not continue to repeat these things? And once I did that, I can honestly say that I began to live a more fulfilling life. I was not repeating some of the same things that I had been repeating years before, months before. But, it takes time. It did not happen overnight. You know, it definitely didn't happen, within months. It's still a work in progress. It's something that is continual, and it will be continual. Um, but that's the key, being aware and being honest with myself and being able to heal those things within myself so that I can move on. Um, Another, again, you want to track the trigger's origin. And for me, like I said, with keeping a diary, keeping a journal, it allows me to do just that. It allows me to track where it originated from. When did I first notice these things? When did I first begin to have these feelings? So for me, you know, there are, excuse me, a lot of things that trigger me. And it took me a long, long time. Like I said, I have been living with bipolar disorder type 2 for over 25 years. It used to be called manic depression. And then somewhere along the line, it evolved into bipolar. And what that is bipolar type 2 is you alternate through different emotions and mental states throughout the day. Some people can experience one or the other at separate times. Where, for example, some people will have a lot of depression, episodes of depression, whereas some people will have episodes of mania. And those things make up bipolar disorder. Mania, and they affect each and every person differently. You will never, you will never meet two people that have a mental disease, a mental disorder, whether it be depression, PTSD, anxiety, or bipolar. You will never meet two people with these disorders that will have the exact same symptoms or behaviors. So you can't lump, you can't put everybody in the same category that live with a mental disorder, because it affects each and every person differently. And the reason behind that is a mental disorder, it's a chemical imbalance within the brain. So there is a scientific and medical reasoning as to why it does not affect each and every person the same, because everyone's genetic makeup is differently. Um, Oftentimes it is hereditary. It is something that is and can be passed on to different generations. So it's not going to affect everyone the same. My father, for example, he suffers from depression. He lives with depression. The way that it affects him, it does not affect me. I have family members that have a history of addiction. They suffer with different various mental disorders. Those things did not affect me the same way. I do not have a desire um, to be addicted to any foreign substance, drugs or alcohol or anything of that nature. So, again, that is just a prime example of how living with a mental disorder affects each and every person differently. That's just, a little bit. And it doesn't define who a person is. It doesn't mean that you are not human, that you're incapable of loving someone, that you're incapable of living, a fulfilling, purposeful life just because you live with a mental disorder. Um, that is completely a myth. So I would encourage, those of you who are watching, who are listening to this, not to judge someone. If someone shares with you that they are living with a mental disorder, for you not to judge them, not to shun them, and by all means, under no circumstances should you ever refer to them as crazy. That is just the most, that's the worst thing you could ever do, especially if someone opens up to you and shares with you that they are living with a mental disorder, because it takes a lot. I mean, it takes a lot for them to feel comfortable enough with you to share that tidbit of information. Um, so that's going to be, the gist of me preaching to you guys with regards to that. But, you know, I want this podcast to be a place of healing, a place of support, a place where, we can feel comfortable with sharing and being transparent about mental health and how it affects each and every one of us. Um, and I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to share these different things with you all. So let's get back on track here, because I want to make sure that I am providing you all with actionable, realistic ways to manage, not just manage, to identify, manage, overcome, navigate whatever it is, your mental triggers. What triggers these different responses and emotional states for you? And I don't want you to be afraid of them. I don't want you to judge yourself for them. I don't want you to feel guilty about having these things. What I hope you do is not only embrace them, but allow them to just happen. When I say that, is a lot of times we try to force things. We try to go against the natural order of things. And when we do that, we only cause more problems. We only cause more grief, more heartache, more strife, even more stress in some cases. So when you get to a point where you make yourself aware of what these triggers are, and you're tracking the origin of these triggers, you allow them to happen, but you are doing so more consciously instead of unconsciously, if you get what I'm saying. So, like I shared with you guys before, once I was able to identify the types of triggers that the types of things that trigger me. For an example, I, and this is me being, 100% transparent with you. I only realized last week that the winter, specifically in January, that month within that season triggered me to make the worst decisions in my life that have long term effects on my life, because I would be extremely depressed. And it's only, I would say, the first 2 weeks of January that this happens. And like I said, I just noticed this last week. That's just how recent, it's been. Like I said, I it's something that I'm still growing and learning and going through with. I don't have it all together, guys. So don't feel like you have to have it all together, because I do not have it all together. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. That's why we here. That's why we are listening to the Mental Cookie Podcast. We are watching the Mental Cookie Podcast because we don't have it all together. And if anybody tells you that they got it all together, run in the opposite direction, because they are lying to you. They do not have it all together. Again, nobody has it all together. We're all a work in progress. This is all something that we are all together, collectively working on. So, like I was saying, you know, just last week, I realized that within the first 13 days of January, the winter, I tend to make the worst decisions because I'm depressed. Um, and it's crazy because it's not, the winters in Arizona are not typical winters. So it's not like, I was born and raised in Detroit. I grew up in Detroit and in Ohio. So it's cold there. It's the physical signs of winter. So that coldness and snow, I don't like snow. I do not like snow. So those things of course are depressing, but living here in Arizona, it's not that cold during the winter months. So I haven't quite discovered why or what it is about the winter and January that triggers me into a depressive state. And within that depressive state, it causes me to make poor decisions that have long term effects on my life. That's something that I still have not discovered. So that's going to be a journey that we're going to be embarking on together. So I'm going to be sharing, a little bit more with you guys with regards to that. But again, that was me being aware. See what I did there? Being aware of a trigger. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to track the origin of that specific trigger. I need to find out why, what it is, how did it ever, start. And that's going to take a journey within self. And it's also going to elicit the help of professionals. Because remember, I told y'all, Lisa Marie, I am not a professional licensed therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist, psychotherapist, none of those things. I did not go to school for. I do not have a degree. I do not have a medical degree. I don't have a certificate of any sort. All I have is my own personal experience to go off of. Only I know me, and I'm still discovering me. Because you can know yourself, but you can also discover yourself. And that's going to take some time. You know, it's not something that, again, happens overnight. It takes some work, it takes some dedication, it takes commitment. And that is exactly what I'm going to do because I am committed to myself and making sure that I am living the best life that I can live, and I am living within my purpose, my life's purpose. So, that is nobody else's responsibility but my own. However, I am going to seek out the assistance. See what I did there? I'm going to seek out the assistance of licensed professionals because that's what they're there for. I can't do all of this by myself. Have you met me? I can be a handful. I can be a lot. So I need some help dealing with me because I can't do it all by myself. So you can't do it all by yourself either. So you gonna need some help. So you go out there and you get the help that you need, and you are not going to be ashamed to do so. You are going to do it with your head held high because you are not judging yourself. You are not weak, quite the opposite. You are strong because you are going to elicit the assistance of those in occupations that are meant to help you. That's why they went to school, because they want to help you. They want to help you be the best version of you. So we're not going to just, leave. They ain't got nothing else to do if we don't call upon them. So that's what we're going to do. You know, I can go on and on and on about these different things. But again, this specific podcast, my inaugural podcast, and again, I want to thank you for tuning in, is about triggers, your mental health triggers, whatever triggers a certain type of emotional state for you. And I've been talking, in case you're, just tuning in, I've been talking about different types of triggers. Now, for me, I've shared that I have seasonal triggers. I also have, people triggers. People can trigger you. It can be a sibling, it can be a spouse, it can be a child. Because I tell you, them children, I have three of them. They all grown, thank God. But, children can be triggers. Family members can be triggers. I am the oldest of eight kids, and I have six brothers and one sister. And when I tell you, each one of my brothers trigger a different emotional state for me. Love, whether it's love, hate, anger, frustration, um, pain, all of those different things. Each and every, I got six. When you got six brothers, they're bound. I mean, it's just like it's going to happen that they are going to trigger a different type of emotional state from you. And with my one sister, she triggers as well. Nieces, nephews, the works, friends, cohort, whatever. Men, women, everybody. So being able to be aware of not only who, what, because it can be something that they say that will trigger something from you. For example, me personally, this doesn't bother me, but for some people, a certain word, being called a certain name, will trigger a certain type of response out of them. For example, somebody call you a bitch. There are a lot of people that will say them's fighting words, they are ready to rip your head off because somebody called you a bitch. Like, and for me, that's not a trigger for me. You can call me whatever you want to call me because I know what my name is. I know who I am. So something like that will not trigger any type of response from me. However, there are some people, again, like I state, that being called a bitch will trigger a response for them. So, what they need to do, if that somebody is you, is you need to figure out why. Why does somebody calling you a bitch make you angry, make you frustrated, make you want to fight, cause physical bodily harm to someone? Why? Why is that? You need to get to the root of that. That's not what's on your birth certificate. That's not what your mama named you. So why does it bother you so much? Why do you allow that to trigger that type of emotional response from you? So that's just an example. You know what I'm saying? You know, triggers are something that are infinite. There are so many. And again, like I stated before, not everyone will have the exact same responses to things. Hence what I just said. You know, triggers can cause anxiety, it can cause anger, it can cause feelings of being overwhelmed, being vulnerable, out of control, abandoned, loneliness. It can cause muscle tensions, memories tied to a traumatic event, pain, sadness, all of those different things triggers can cause. And for me, like I stated earlier, the fall triggers a lot of episodes of mania. And those manic episodes, like I said, it causes severe anxiety. Um, and if you've never experienced an anxiety attack before, a panic attack before, count your blessings. I'm just gonna say that. Just be happy because they're exhausting. I mean, physically exhausting. And they can cause you to just have no energy, deplete every ounce of energy that you have. Muscles will tense up and cause pain. Again, headaches, especially if you experience them in ways like I do, where I have days of insomnia where I can't sleep for 24, 48. I think the longest was 36 hours, and that's not fun. It's not fun at all. But being able to be aware of those things and find ways to manage them and cope with them, whereas they're not so severe, it's a lot of work. However, I'm worth it. And that's my motivation. That's what makes me continue on, because I'm worth it. If I'm not going to do it, I I can't expect somebody else to do it because it's not their life. They're not me. So why would I expect someone else to do these things? Um so that's what I want to encourage you guys to do, is be aware of things that elicit these different emotional states in your life. Don't allow them so much control over your actions, because when you have an, an emotional trigger such as anger, it will cause you to make decisions that have lasting effects. And it can cause you to either put yourself in a position where you can even die, or you can be in jail, or you can just, really, really hurt yourself. And I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to be in any of those places. So I hope that what I shared with you guys today was able to help you or a loved one, or anybody for that matter. And I encourage each and every one of you to look within yourself and say that I'm worth it. I'm worth doing the work, and commit to yourself. You don't have to commit to me. You got to commit to yourself that you are worthy of you doing the work to help you to heal and lead and live the life that you are destined to live, the life that you are supposed to live, because each and every one of us have a purpose. We may not know what that purpose is right away, but you have a purpose. You have a purpose. We all have a purpose. So make that commitment to yourself. Make it. Don't think about it. Make that commitment to yourself to do the work so that you are living your best life. And with that, I want to thank you guys again for tuning in to my very first podcast episode. And it's going to be more to come. I just haven't decided how often I want to release things. If I want to do it on a weekly basis, or if I want to do it on a bi-weekly basis. But what you can do is you can send me an email and let me know. Or you can comment on, this video. You can comment on my social media platforms. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at The Mental Cookie. That's it, just The Mental Cookie. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Mental Cookie, um, and let me know what you think. Um, you will be able to download and listen to my audio episodes wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Um, so I would like to thank you guys. The email, oh, my apologies. If you have any questions or you need some advice or anything, you can email me at advice@thementalcookie.com. That's ADVICE, in case you forgot, at thementalcookie.com. And again, my name is Lisa Marie, and this has been The Mental Cookie. And I would like to thank you guys for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.